So today we've got a very special video. We're going to be investigating an interesting discovery about these attractions here, which is that they have different effects depending on the animals they're looking at. This is coming from Reddit. Specifically, this post by Picosaur Rex, where he looked at the different effects of these viewing galleries and noticed that this little bit here on the tooltip that describes which specific animal is supposed to be optimal actually has a gameplay effect and changes the appeal. So this post is very informative, but it is not comprehensive. So the goal for today's video is to take a comprehensive look at the effects of these viewing galleries on the animals. So what we're looking at here to see the English descriptions, if you look at the viewing platform, for instance, it says here in the third paragraph on the tooltip, best for large dinosaurs, period, no space, directly to the next sentence, attached directly to enclosure fences, right? So then if you look at your animal in game, we got a single giga here. We look at its appeal tab, 616 appeal, base 586, plus 30 for the modifications that rolled at random. But if we hover over our attractions, we can see the dome here has a local dinosaur appeal of 308, while the log viewing gallery has a local dinosaur appeal of 462, and the tower has a local dinosaur appeal of 924. So the tower is getting the most benefit from the giga, like 1.5 times. And we're being penalized on like the tour, on the dome, to all different degrees. The zipline is showing the base value, 1x. So this is like very complicated. Local dinosaur appeal on gyrosphere, 770. Tour, 462. And then the park tour, also 462. So the Jurassic tour and the park tour seem to be the same. The gyrosphere is different, and this is reflected in the tooltips, because the gyrosphere says best for carnivores, park tour and the truck say best for herbivores, right? Log viewing gallery is best for small carnivores. Viewing gallery, remote viewing gallery is best for small dinosaurs. But these actually appear to penalize the giga differently, because the dome is 308 and the log is 462. So the log is giving us, I guess, like 75% because it is a carnivore, whereas the dome is given like half because it's both not small and not a carnivore. This is actually surprisingly relevant. Now, presumably, this would be reflected in your, not your park prestige rating here, but in your actual like economy, right? So we should test that too. Before we go through and test like all the consequences of these different attractions, we need to figure out how much this actually changes things. And we got a few things here that we don't have in view yet that we'll need to test as well. Okay, so here we have a tower for optimal 924 appeal on a single giga in this pen back here, perfectly in view. We have 3 amenities. These amenities are at 30,546 when they're optimized. Now, if we connect to this section and check the same thing, but with this viewing dome, which is not a good attraction for a giga, let's see what the difference in economy is. And I'll point out that the park connection has been severed here on the entrance. Okay, I think we need to wait and let it equalize for a little bit. But this looks like it's stabilized at about 19,200 actually. So I think there's kind of a lag as the park changes before this kicks in. So you can't just immediately evaluate it. Okay, I'm just going to talk about something seemingly being fundamentally wrong here in this game, in the sense that putting in these new amenities, they immediately jump up to 30 profit, like switching the attraction. Switch to the remote with 1 giga versus the tower with 1 giga, which ostensibly is much less appeal, like a third of the total appeal. These start at 30, but then slowly tick down over time. But like the thing is, that makes no sense. Like, because this isn't it readjusting from like an elevated level to a low level. This is going from a low level to an elevated level upon switching attraction types, and then returning to some sense of normalcy slowly later. This is very weird how the income levels function. So it looks like these have maybe stabilized at about 19k, which means the difference of 1/3 total appeal is actually negligible. which is also very strange. This is specifically the amenity, not like the total tickets. So we could look at that too. We have apparently 185 people here, yeah? Yeah, 185 guests. And we're at... Let's see if the amenities have changed. 19074. Okay. But yeah, let's see here. If I do Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, we bring back this connection, and then we edit these. We go from orange to white, because that's the difference between the two attractions. Yeah, they immediately jump up to 30K. So, okay. Game theory. 30 is like a default income level. When you make an adjustment to the shop, rather than it calculating what its profit margin actually is supposed to be, it returns to the default value and then adjusts downward to what it's supposed to be over time, which is insane behavior. It takes a substantially long time for this to start kicking in too, and then it ticks down by about, 500 a second here until it stabilizes. It's very, very weird. Yeah, so 19212 is where it stops going down. So that's the actual value. That is the exact number we had before, so this is like deterministic, it seems. And our guest total is 184 guests, which is a difference of one guest. So this does seemingly matter, the local appeal, but it seems that it is a very minor effect, at least when it comes to a single animal, which is interesting. Okay, 3 issues, total appeal 531, prestige 1848. Right, this is displayed appeal. So this is 924. So why is this 531? Okay, so we have the amphitheater, local dinosaur appeal 1318. That is by far the largest amount we've seen. That is like a full 200% appeal rating, which is crazy. For record, the viewing gallery appears to be flat. That is just your regular value. The tower gave us 150% on a large carnivore. The zip line is 112.5%. Tours 75%. Both tours. Gyrosphere is 125%. The dome is 50%. The log is 75%, and the balloon was 150%. So the amphitheater, by far the best option so far. We've got Gigas moving in here next to this Aviary and Lagoon, so we can check the Lagoon and Aviary specific attractions as well. And the boat. The other one looks like it's already walked out here. Local dinosaur bill 878. So this is, we'll have to double check this with only the one. 293 Lagoon. So that's the worst by far. So that's slightly worse than 50%. We'll have to run the calc. 586 on the Lagoon viewing gallery. That's also a new number for the appeal, actually. So that's fun. Oh, but this one is actually a different score. This is also relevant because these guys have differing genes. So this is, you are a 586. So that is actually 100% fair. So 293, probably just 50%. Yes, absolutely 50%. Okay. So that's 50% on the Lagoon Dome, which is interesting that the Lagoon Dome, inside a lagoon, views a carnivore outside the lagoon with the same efficiency that a land dome does when it's looking at a carnivore, which is somewhat surprising. And the stand is functionally, for a large carnivore specifically, equivalent to a regular viewing stand. And then for the amphitheater, we had this Giga in there, right? This one originally, which was 586 as well. So that'd have been Wait. Well, whatever. Double, essentially. Okay, so that's 225% with some funky rounding, actually. So that's even better. Yeah, I was thinking the 600 originally, but yeah, that's obviously not gonna break 13. So 878 on this, but we have 2 here. So let's clear one of these out. Oops. And check what it is then. Okay, and on this side, the Aviary viewing gallery is showing 616, and this is presumably a 616 appeal. Yeah, so Aviary viewing gallery functions the same as Lagoon viewing gallery in that it's 100%. So there is no functional difference, at least as far as large carnivores are concerned, between the default viewing stand, gallery, whatever, the Lagoon viewing gallery, and the Aviary viewing gallery. These all see the carnivores equivalently. So that's a piece of information. Okay, so we've got 439 on one visible, which should be, I think, this front giga. They've kind of walked around. But this one is a 586. So 439 over 586. And that is going to be probably 75%, right? Yeah, 75% with a little bit of rounding. That's all the large carnivore metrics then. Okay, so I've gotten the brockies checked. I've been just like, releasing them in specific areas near the attractions, airlifting them around. Here's what we got for a large herbivore. We get 100% on viewing gallery, same as the carnivore, under 50% on platform, 100% viewing galleries for aviaries and lagoons, so that's all the same as the large theropod. Dome 50%, lagoon viewing dome 50%, also the same as the large carnivore. The first difference is in the log viewing gallery. The log viewing gallery provides a absolutely dismal 25% of its worth for a sauropod. So on the carnivore, this was 75%. 25% is the worst we've seen. The car tours are worth 125% with a sauropod. And the gyro station is 75%. This is an inverse of what it was for the large carnivore, where the gyro station was 125, and the car tour was 75. The balloon is 150, identical. The zip line is something else, let me tell you. This is worth 375% appeal when it's seen on a zip line, which is like astounding. It's not in view right now. You'll have to take my word for it. It should come into view in the direction it's going there. The Cretaceous Cruise is 125% of its worth versus 75% for the theropod, and the amphitheater is only 75% down from 225% for the large theropod. So the zipline, yeah, there we go, 558. That's different. Okay, I must have just forgot to divide this by 2 the first time I looked at it, because I did have 2 brockies here, because I accidentally released both straight out the hatch instead of airlifting one. Given that that's exactly double what it was, that has to be what I did. This is still the highest value we found for an attraction. This is still 187.5% of the individual brockies values. This is still the biggest number, other than the amphitheater, but not as broken as I thought it was. But this is essentially the amphitheater maximizes the carnivore, the zipline maximizes the large herbivore. That's the way to think about it. Okay, so current test Ankylosaurus. Now this is interesting because this is not. There's some weird numbers here. This is not consistent with the large herbivores. What we have instead is the standard viewing gallery performance of 100%. Platforms are worth 125% with Ankylosaurus, down from 150 on the larger animals. The dome viewing galleries go up to 75% because I guess it's, like a medium properly. Log viewing gallery is 37.5%, which is a number we haven't seen before. So slightly more effective than on the Brockie. Tour is equally effective as it was on the Brockie, 125%, so the tour seems to not care about size. Same with the gyro station, which is 75% for Ankylosaurus. Balloon tour, 93.75% of appeal. Weird number. Zipline, 156% of appeal. Weird number. This is like you know, the extra 50%, but then the 6.25 tacked on top of that. 156.25% actually. Cretaceous cruise 125%. Again, doesn't seem to care about size, just diet. Dinosaur encounter is still not applicable here. The amphitheater 62.5%. So the Brachii being a larger animal is slightly better in the amphitheater. The Anki smaller, it's worth less, but the amphitheater really favors carnivores, so both are worth substantially less than the Giga was. All right, Ceratosaurus is our next test animal. This is a medium carnivore, and this is reflected by what we can see here from the numbers. Viewing galleries 100%, platform 125%, same as the Ankylosaurus. It only cares about the fact that the animal is like medium scale, so it gets a small bonus. Dome viewing galleries 75%, same as the Anki. Log viewing gallery is different. Log viewing gallery 112.5% value for Ceratosaurus because the log viewing gallery is favoring small carnivores. So as a medium carnivore, it is still slightly more effective. Tour 75%, same as the Giga. Again, the tour is favoring herbivores, and then inverse of the gyro station, where the gyro station is 125% because it's favoring carnivores. Balloon tour 93.75%, same as the Anki. Balloon tour only cares about scale. Zipline 93.75%. So this is the worst zipline animal we've seen so far, being worth the first one that's actually worth less than its base value with a zipline. And this is because the zipline, of course, is large herbivore. So this is looking for both an animal that is large and an animal that is an herbivore. And if it meets both, it gets a lot of bonus. And if it meets neither, it gets very little. It gets penalized heavily, right? So as a medium carnivore, it's dipping lower. The cruise is 75%, same with the Giga. So the cruise really is a clone. Functionally, the cruise is a clone of the tour, of the car tour, right? Best for herbivores. Best for herbivores. These tooltips being the same, this is actually consistent, it seems. So there's that. The amphitheater, 187.5. So as a medium carnivore, it's still going to get pretty substantial bonus, but not as much as a large carnivore. Now, we need to test Metriacanthosaurus. And this is interesting because Metri is listed as a large. So I want to test it on the zip line. If I can get one out here, and in the amphitheater. And I guess we'll chuck one over by the kayak. That's fine. I need to clear out these Ceratos, though. We're all here in the middle. All right. Well, this is a important detail. We've learned a thing. The amphitheater here is providing 1,005 appeal on a Metriacanthosaurus worth 536. This is 187.5%. This is not 225%, which means if you go to the hatchery and you go to synth and you sort the animals by size, you can't trust this. This is not accurate. This is a large carnivore. The game knows this is a large carnivore. It gets the bonuses for being a large carnivore. Metriacanthosaurus is on this tab, but it is a medium carnivore. In-game, functionally, it is a medium carnivore. So, you need to know independently of what the game tells you what the actual size of the animal is, because this is just wrong. Clearly, in this case, because Metri has no business being a large animal. Okay, so after testing Therizinosaurus, it is functionally a sauropod for all intents and purposes. The traction bonuses are seemingly identical. So yeah, just large herbivore category is literally just sauropods and Therizinosaurus. Okay, small carnivore. We have the Herrera. This acts as you would expect. Viewing platforms are only worth 75% now with this, so this is the first animal that's dipped below 100% on a viewing platform. Given the platforms are skewed high, that makes some sense. The dome viewing galleries are now positive at 125%, up from 75 on the mediums. The log viewing galleries are now 187.5%, which is very high. Equivalent to a medium animal in the amphitheater. and they are the best attraction for the small carnivore. Tours are 75%, gyro stations are on 25%. This is following the exact trend of only diet influencing the tours. Balloon tour 75%, which is the lowest we've seen there. The balloon tour cares about size, so that one does not react the same as the gyrosphere, the vehicle tours, and the boat tour. Boat tour 75% here. The zipline's only 56%, 56.25% for Herrerasaurus. It's our first small, so it makes sense that it would be that low. The zipline cares both about size and diet, so that completely tracks. And the amphitheater, 112.5%, so slightly boosted still in the amphitheater. Even though the amphitheater wants a large carnivore, the fact that this is a carnivore is still returning a positive on the investment, which is interesting because it means the diet is worth more to the attraction than the size, right? If we have a large carnivore in the amphitheater, it's 225%. If we have a large herbivore, it's 75%. If we have a small carnivore, it's 112.5%. You might expect the sauropod and the small carnivore to be worth the same because each of the categories is missing, one of the two things that dictates, the maximum return, right? One is large, one is small, one is herbivore, one is carnivore. But that is not the case. The diet is much more substantial there, which probably makes sense given that the medium Ceratosaurus was still worth 187.5% in the amphitheater. But yeah, things are scaling in a reasonable way in the sense that the numbers aren't completely gibberish, but it's still fairly complicated in that these things all scale in different ways. They don't scale by the same amount. Certain ones are copy-paste like the tours, but other things like the amphitheater are pretty unique in terms of their scaling. Now this is strange. Gallimimus apparently is a medium. Are small herbivores even a thing? Very weird. Okay, amphitheater 12? 12 on the amphitheater. Well, we gotta check this individual Gallimimus. No, this should be, 21. So this is 12 or 21, 57%, but the rounding being the way it works, this should be 62.5. And if this was a 13, well, 13 says 61.9. Okay, the rounding is a little weird, but I think this is essentially whatever this was supposed to be on the Anki. So this does seem to functionally be specifically equivalent to a medium herbivore, which is just strange. Okay, so Microceratus does have different numbers than the Gallimimus. The Galley appears for all functions to be medium herbivore, but the Micro is not. The Micro has a value of 50% on the viewing platform, even worse than the small carnivore, the Herrera. So it seems like Micro might be like a tiny herbivore, and small herbivores maybe don't exist, which is baffling. 150% on the viewing domes, too, is higher than 125 on the Herreras. Log at 75%. Tour 125 expected value. Balloon tour 50% is the lowest we've seen on the balloon tour as well. So there's definitely something going on here. 7 out of 28, right? Yeah. So that's a quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, exactly a quarter. So that's also the lowest amphitheater value we've ever seen. Fascinating. Dinosaur encounter, I haven't even been able to catch a single animal going into that thing, which is comedy. We'll have to probably try the encounters in a dedicated new area at some point, because trying to get an animal to go into an encounter here doesn't seem like it's plausible. We should probably check the cruise just for sanity. Yeah, cruise is the expected 125% for an herbivore, so nothing to really learn there. So the big thing seems to be that tiny herbivores is a category, while small herbivores is not, which is just insane. Alright, compies count as tiny carnivores. So amphitheater 14 puts that at 75% versus 25% for the micro. meaning a brachy in an amphitheater is equivalent to a copy in an amphitheater in terms of the bonus percentage they get. Cruise, 75%. This is following the tour distribution stuff, it's just a binary depending on diet. Continues to be true. Zipline, 37.5% for the copy. This is the worst category. So the zipline favors herbivores at large, which means this is the worst you could be. It makes perfect sense. 225% on long viewing gallery. That is the highest bonus we've seen for anything that is equivalent to a large carnivore in the amphitheater. So it seems to me, just looking at the numbers, the amphitheater and log viewing gallery are actually counterparts. The numbers are inverted. So you get a massive bonus in an amphitheater for a large carnivore. You get a massive bonus in a log viewing gallery for a small carnivore. And then the penalties for the herbivores are just kind of flipped of each other. 25% for a brachiosaurus on a log, 25% for a microstratus on an amphitheater, peaking at like 187.5 for the small carnivore, 187.5 for the medium before you get to the large and small. Yeah, I mean, they seem to be just mirrored. Other things, 50% for viewing platform, same as micro. And yeah, dome viewing gallery, 150%. So it looks like the domes range. So we still need to figure out what the small herbivore category actually is, because Galley wasn't in it, but it seems like generally speaking, we've kind of figured out the trend here. So viewing galleries are flat, 100% always. Viewing platforms vary between 50% and 150%, depending on the size of the animal. Large, 150, medium, 125, small, 75, tiny, 50%. Avian and Lagoon viewing galleries function the same as normal viewing galleries. Domes are 50, 75, 125, 150, which is the counterpart of the viewing platform. So the viewing platform and the dome viewing gallery are inverses of each other. Lagoon viewing gallery follows the dome viewing gallery. The log is the inverse of the amphitheater, so we're looking at a range of 25 to 225%, but with different scaling for herbivores and carnivores. The max only being reached for the carnivores on both of those. We have the tours. The tours are simple binary flips between 75 and 125, depending on the diet of the animal. So if you have the wrong diet on the tour, it's 75%. If you have the right diet on the tour, it's 125. Gyrospheres for carnivores. Regular tours are for herbivores. The balloon tour scales between 50 and 150%. Scaling only based on size. So the balloon tour wants large animals, but doesn't care about diet, but will go to small size for, but we'll go to 50% for the tiny sized animals. The zip line is is the zip line actually a counterpart of anything? It's analogous. So the zip line is analogous to the amphitheater, but doesn't scale as strongly, right? So the zip line favors large herbivores over small carnivores. Small carnivores are the worst you can have. Large herbivores are the best you can have. But the zip line only ranges from 37.5% to 187.5% appeal. So it does not range as high as the amphitheater or the log viewing gallery, which are the most min-maxed attractions. The cruise is a reskin of the car tours. It has no different functionality, and we don't know how the dinosaur encounter works because nothing ever goes to it. Testing out small herbivores, Struthi, Chungking, and Pachycephalosaurus are actually small classed, so this is very strange. Cutoff is maybe somewhere around the Gallimimus scale then, I guess. Legitimately, I think I'm going to recheck Gallimimus and check all the other Ornithomimosaurs, I guess. Because this is a little arbitrary feeling. We have Protoceratops flying in now, which is what I'm curious about. Maybe? Excuse me, are we? Okay, we're moving.
Delivery has been completed.
81, and you are 54. So that is small. Because, interesting. Yeah, that's 1.5 times. So 150%, which makes it... Wait a second. Wait, 150%. Wait, that makes us tiny. What? 40 appeal? 40 on 54? 75%. Yeah, wait, Protoceratops is tiny? I feel like I need to go back and check the last one again. These cutoffs feel extremely arbitrary. Another important observation here, Oviraptor counts as an herbivore. Even though it is an omnivore, in terms of its dietary demands, it gets a bonus not from the log, but from the regular dome only. So that means the log does not recognize this as a carnivore. Okay, so Ornithomimus is a medium. 20 appeal on a 27, right? So this is worth less than 100%. Archaeornithomimus and Struthiomimus are small. So we were probably right with the Gallimimus, but I am going to double check it. Just to verify. But the size cutoff is somewhere in the middle of the Ornithomimosaurs. It seems like all the Pachycephalosaurs are small, or maybe tiny with Homalocephaly. This is very weird. Chung is small, like... It is non-obvious who is what, where, and when. 21, 15, yeah, so this was medium. Very weird. Okay, lagoons are weird. We've got Mosa, Attenborough, and Ichthy. Ostensibly small, medium, and large. These two are identical. It seems like there's just maybe two size classes for lagoons. The viewing galleries... So here's what it is, right? A land viewing gallery or an aviary viewing gallery provides 40% of the appeal, a number not used for any of the land animals. The towers, weirdly, provide like 49.5% for small and medium. And then for the large, get this, the large marine animal gets a penalty from the tower, reducing its appeal to 59.99%. Not 60%, not 59.98%. The Mosasaurus appeal is large enough that when we adjust the value from the tower by 1 upwards, we can actually find to 2 decimal places where the cutoff is. It is not 60%. It is 59.99%, approximately, somewhere in there. 59.995 or something, who knows, right? Why? That's crazy. The lagoon viewing galleries provide 100% appeal. So there's no benefit to the lagoon viewing gallery. The viewing gallery is only needed to not be penalized in terms of your marine animal appeal, which is interesting because it means you're not getting a attraction bonus to these guys from any of these, unlike you do from the land animals, which means you can get double the appeal for certain land animals, but you could seemingly never get double the appeal for these guys. Now, the only thing that might make a difference that we haven't tested yet is the lagoon dome, so we should definitely get these in here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have added a new viewing gallery, ready for you to observe.
Because these could provide some sort of real bonus. This is certainly possible. How is that obstructed? Sir? I question a lot. Okay, it's not. The game lies to me all the time now. Yeah, for some reason these days the feedback on obstruction is completely broken. Okay, so on the Mosa, right, we got 1379, and the dome provides only 689? This is penalized? Wait, what? Does that make sense? Is that what the tooltip says? Oh, small marine animals. Sure, yeah, okay. 689 over 1379. 689 over 1379 is 49.96%. And if it was 690, it'd be 50%. So this is 50%. This is actually sane. So we're looking at 50% on the Mosasaurus. For the dome, specifically. Okay. For the Lagoon dome, specifically. Okay. Now, for the Attenborough, we have 147 on 197. 147 on 197. This is like 75%. Probably exactly 75%. And then on the Ichthyosaurus, we have 54, and the dome is 40? Okay, so Lagoon domes are always bad. What the fuck? That makes no sense. 40 on 54 is also 75%. Okay, so there is no such thing, I think, as a medium or a small. There's no distinction between medium and small aquatics. It's just the large things and the other things. You never get a bonus for these guys ever. And you actually get penalized by almost every attraction type, seemingly. Okay, so the numbers continue to be lunacy for the lagoons. We're looking at... Hold on, let me align my things here. So we're looking at, for the Mosasaurus, Lagoon Viewing Gallery baseline 100%, Dome Viewing Gallery 20%, Lagoon Viewing Dome 50%, Log Viewing Gallery 30%, Tour 30%, Gyrosphere 49.9%. So it counts as a carnivore, so it does provide more for that reason. On the Ichthyosaurus, this is providing 26. Ichthy was 54. 2654 is 50%, right? 48%, I mean. Yes, of course. I can math. So 48%-ish. So this is where it gets weird. So it's a little harder to estimate the exact numbers on the Ichthyosaurus, but there seems to consistently be like a small deviation. So the gyrosphere, 49.9% of the Mosasaurus, but 48% on the Ichthyosaurus. That seems to be a real distinction. Let's double check this. If this was 2754, that would be 50% exactly, right? And it's not 50%, so therefore... Well, this could be for this. No, this could still be 49.9. Okay, so I think this is the same. 49.9% for the gyro on both. And then for the tour, 30 and 28. Maybe I need to recheck that. All right, let's rebuild the tour. The non-gyro. Nope. My point is, though, there's the numbers are not like naively what you would expect them to be based on the land animals. There is just like additional penalties just by being like a lagoon creature. You just don't even get the same type of scaling effect, which is just weird. Okay, so on the tour, 1554. So 15 over 54 is 27.7. I had 28. Now, if it was 16, this would be 29. Yeah, so this can't be 30%. This could be 29.6%, which would get weird with... Wait, 29 point... Okay, we're going to figure this out. If this is 29.6... Let's just call it 29.6. I am filling out a spreadsheet for this, which will be linked in the description of the video. So this is 29.6. The Mosasaur tour is 413, and the Mosasaur is 1379. 413 over 1379. 413, 1379. Double checking. Is that correct? 413, 1379. 29.949. $29.9, and if it's 14, then it goes above 30. So I think it's actually, it's got to be like 29.95 or 29.99. Probably 29.99, judging by the 59.99 we're pretty confident for. So I think it's 29.99%, which is insane. On both? So 29.99% for the tour, 49, it's probably 49.99% then as well. No, I think, oh my God. We're just leaving it. We're just leaving it. I'm just curious because these numbers are insane. Which is why like I was checking this, but like ultimately at the end of the day it doesn't matter. Other quirks. The log viewing gallery is 43% ichthyosaurus versus 30% on mosasaurus because it favors a small carnivore. So the ichthyosaur gets a slight bonus. The lagoon viewing dome, 75% on ichthy versus 50% on mosa because it does favor small as well. The dome viewing gallery, 28% versus 20, again, favoring small. So, wait, what was the exact tooltips again on this? Hold on. This shit's confusing. Small dinosaurs, small marine, small carnivore. So a dome at 28 versus a log at 43. Yeah, that I guess that makes sense. 20 to 30, the log is worth 10%, versus 30 versus 20 on the MOSA for the log versus the regular dome. I mean, sure, I guess. Sure, those are the numbers. The zipline favors large, so the zipline on a mosasaur lagoon provides you with 44.8% appeal for the MOSA. The ichthyes only get 33.3 repeating percent. Probably not actually 33.3 repeating on the code. Very unlikely to be a repeating number. It's probably like 33.4% or something, but it's a third, essentially. All right, balloons and boats. So the balloons are 59.9% on Mosasaurus, 36.6% on Ichthyosaurus. So these numbers feel completely made up, but they're not any more crazy than the other numbers at this point. They also just don't really match anything. So that's, yeah, the scaling, it just feels like somebody just put in like really arbitrary placeholder numbers of like strange percentages. Like the logic here for the land animals makes some sense. The lagoon animals, it's just is whatever. This is a pretty significant penalty for lagoons overall though, because none of these provide a bonus. You're literally like losing out on the capability of doubling your appeal if you use a lagoon animal over an equivalent land animal, which is crazy. Also, the boat radius is hideously small. So 15 over 54. The Ichthyosaurus boat is 27.7 repeating percent, somewhere in there. It is less than, specifically, 16, which is 29.6, so we can call this 29% for some reason. I don't know, man. The 29.99. So these are different, right? This can't be. Yeah, the if you add one and you do the math, they do come out to be slightly different. So for whatever reason, the Cretaceous cruise on a large mosasaur is like 30%, and then on a small ichthyosaur is 29%. There's some decimal places there, but it's unclear exactly where some of them come out to be. Yeah, I guess there's a small size penalty maybe being applied here. I don't know. It's very weird. Now, naively, one would hope that for the aviary animals, this all functions the same. But I have to check, because this is Jurassic World Evolution, and we cannot take for granted that anything functions consistently in any way. So we're going to check the different galleries and towers. We're going to see how those fall out. If these are the numbers we get from the lagoons, we can probably safely assume that these function identically, but if not, we might have to check everything. All right. Three size classes of pterosaur: Dimorphodon, Pteranodon, Quetzalcoatlus. Small, medium, large. These seem to be real categories. These have different numbers. 40% from a viewing gallery, be it a lagoon or a land viewing gallery. 100% from the aviary viewing gallery. The tower is where it gets different. 20% on the Quetz. 20% on the Dimorphodon, 50% on the Pteranodon, 59.9% on the Quetz. So this is echoing, somewhat echoing the weird numbers we saw, at least in terms of it definitely not being 60% for the large aerial, but the other numbers are at least somewhat sane, so there's that. We need to check some other stuff here. Okay, the domes appear to actually be somewhat sane. So the dome viewing gallery we're getting on the Quetz. Wait. Huh. Okay, the dome, I don't understand exactly the numbers here. 50% value for the Quetz on the dome, 40% for the Pteranodon, and then 150% for the Dimorphodon. That is not following a linear trend. That's for small dinosaurs and flying reptiles. Why would this be better for Quetz than Pteranodon ever? If it favors small, am I 61, 121, 413? Let me double check my numbers. Oh, I think I wrote down the wrong thing. Wait, 121. Wait. What the? Wait, that's the gallery. Sorry. 517, yes. 121. Okay, yeah, no, I had the wrong thing written down. This is 121. I don't know what I wrote down. I think I wrote down, yeah, the gallery. Okay, 121 over 162. That makes sense. That is going to be better. 121 over 162 is, we'll call it 75%, because it's probably running down from that. Now that makes sense. 50, 75, 150. So this is interesting, because this means that your dome viewing gallery with small pterosaurs actually does give you a decent bonus to their appeal, rendering Dimorphodon and presumably Tapajara and Kayuajara capable of having actual bonuses. The other pterosaurs, Quetz and Pteranodon, still don't get anything that boosts their appeal, so they are still a substantial downside to those animals. Testing the log viewing gallery, we end up with... Hold on, let me finish up the last column on the spreadsheet. Log viewing gallery, Quetzalcoatlus, 30%. Log viewing gallery on Pteranodon, 40%. Wow, that almost looks like a reasonable trend. Log viewing gallery Dimorphodon, 86%. Not 85%, 86%. I don't know why. So the log gallery is equivalent to a viewing gallery for Pteranodon. It is worse for Quetz, and it is substantially better for Dimorphodon than a viewing gallery, but on Dimorphodon you would always want a standard dome, and never a log. Okay, gyrosphere is 50% on Quetz, but like 49% on Pteranodon and Dimorphodon. While the gyro station is 30%, or I mean the tour is 30% on Pteranodon and Quetz, and 28% on Dimorphodon. What are these balancing numbers? These are so weird. The zipline is 44.8% on Quetz, 37.5% on Pteranodon, and 13% on Dimorphodon. Explain that one. All right. So yeah, we got the last of the things here. I believe I said the zipline, but if not, I'll repeat it. 44.8 on Quetz, 37.5 on Pteranodon, 30% on Dimorphodon. The balloon tour is 59.9% on Quetz, equivalent to a viewing platform. But then it falls off with diminishing size. So 37.5 on Pteranodon, which is a dramatic drop, and then 20% on Dimorphodon. The weird thing about this is the viewing tower on Pteranodon is 50%, 59.9% on cats and 20% on Dimorphodon. So the tower is equivalent to the balloon for Quetzalcoatlus and Dimorphodon, but not Pteranodon, who is more visible from a tower than the balloon for some reason. And then the cruise is exactly identical to the tour for the pterosaurs, but wasn't for the lagoon animals. It was subtly different. But here it is literally the exact same numbers, which is certainly a thing. All right, well, this took way too long. This took hours and hours and hours of my life. The spreadsheet will be linked in the description of the video. I'll probably do a shorts version of this at some point soon too, to like consolidate everything I've learned. But this is overly complicated. I don't know why this is configured in such a way in this game as to be so obtuse. But it is, and isn't that just swell?